The planet is home to countless cities of extraordinary beauty. Some are nestled in breathtaking landscapes, blending seamlessly with nature. Others came to life over generations, driven by the creativity of history's great thinkers. Today, we embark on a journey through the most beautiful cities in the world. We'll explore famous destinations as well as remote places that few have ever heard of, and even fewer have seen in person. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Known as the Marvelous City, it captivates with the lushness of its tropical nature. It lies on a narrow strip of land between the Atlantic Ocean and a chain of steep, forest-covered mountains. The rainforest lives within the city. Tijuca National Park is the largest urban forest on the planet. The city was forced to adapt to its geography. Aqueducts, bridges, and tunnels cut through the mountains to link different areas. Favelas climb up the hillsides. Beaches are framed by mountains, jungle, and a web of residential buildings. Natural stone giants like Sugarloaf Mountain rise abruptly from the coastline. Atop Corvocado Hill stands Christ the Redeemer, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Saint-Malo, France. This fortress city seems to rise straight from the sea, surrounded by waters of deep emerald green. It sits on the coast of Brittany, in the country's northwest, right where the Rance River flows into the English Channel. Founded in the 12th century, it soon became home to feared privateers who, with the king's blessing, brought immense wealth to the city. The old town is encircled by medieval walls, built to shield it from possible attacks coming from the sea. The bay experiences the greatest tidal range in Europe. As the water rises or falls within hours, powerful currents form, unleashing strong waves. Cape Town, South Africa. Called the Mother City, it was the first place where Europeans settled in the country. It lies on the far southwestern tip of the African continent, with the Atlantic Ocean on one side and a line of mountains on the other. Table Mountain is both the geographic and spiritual heart of Cape Town. Depending on the weather, it's sometimes covered with a blanket of clouds. Carved along cliffs that plunge toward the Atlantic, Chapman's Peak Drive ranks among the most spectacular coastal roads in the world. Just outside the city, Boulders Beach is home to a famous colony of African penguins that waddle and nest among the rocks. Kotor, Montenegro. Tucked into a quiet corner of the Bay of Kotor, the city is framed by rugged cliffs. It rests between the sea and steep mountain slopes, a location that made it easy to defend and a prized trading port for centuries. Encircling the historic core, massive walls climb the mountain until they reach an ancient fortress. Most of the buildings are built in stone, accented with Venetian details, creating contrasts between cool shade and the brilliant sunlight of the Adriatic. At its heart lies a maze of narrow cobblestone streets, designed centuries ago to disorient invading forces. Annecy, France. Nicknamed the Venice of the Alps, this enchanting town is laced with canals that weave past medieval buildings. The waterways branch from the Theo River, fed by Lake Annecy, renowned for its crystal-clear purity. Surrounded by the French Prealps, the city shifts with the seasons. Green trails in summer, a ski resort in winter. Its buildings date back to the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, with pedestrian cobblestone streets and no modern architecture to disrupt the charm. Chefchaouen, Morocco. The old quarter of this city is almost entirely painted in a mesmerizing range of blues. It's believed that only 3 Westerners ever visited before Spain took control of the area in the early 20th century. The reason behind the blue color isn't fully known, though one theory links it to Jewish refugees who arrived in the 1930s. In their faith, blue symbolizes the presence of God. Other explanations suggest the hue helps repel mosquitoes or keeps the houses cool during the summer. Guilin, China. Its fame comes from a dreamlike landscape that has inspired countless Chinese artists for centuries. In Guilin, the mountains don't surround the city. They rise right inside it. Hundreds of vegetation-covered peaks emerge from the ground, scattered among buildings, rivers, and parks. Despite its size, Guilin preserves a calm and laid-back atmosphere, standing in contrast to the bustle of China's major cities. Venice, Italy. Nicknamed La Serenissima, it was built on a network of wooden piles driven into the muddy ground of a lagoon. For centuries, its canals have served as the city's streets, with gondolas as the traditional way of moving about. The Grand Canal is lined with palaces that once belonged to Venice's noble families. At the heart of the city lies St. Mark's Square, which Napoleon once called the most beautiful drawing room in Europe. Across the water stands San Giorgio Maggiore, a small island crowned by a white marble church. Dubrovnik, Croatia. It is renowned for its near-perfect preservation as a late medieval city-state with fortifications that are masterpieces of engineering. For centuries, it was a powerful republic, proudly declaring, "Liberty is not to be sold for all the gold in the world." Its massive walls overlook the Adriatic Sea on the one side and a sea of terracotta rooftops on the other. Among the stone houses, the streets shine from centuries of footsteps, worn smooth until they resemble polished marble. Florence, Italy. Between the 14th and 16th centuries, this city became the birthplace of the Renaissance, with extraordinary advances in art and science supported by families like the Medici. It's estimated that a quarter of Italy's artistic heritage is found here. The Duomo, Florence's cathedral, took nearly 2 centuries to complete. Its magnificent dome is the masterpiece of architectural genius of Filippo Brunelleschi. Once the seat of Florentine power, the Palazzo Vecchio now serves as a museum that preserves its historic grandeur. Prague, Czech Republic. Because it wasn't heavily damaged during World War II, the city's extraordinary architectural heritage has reached us almost entirely intact. The medieval Charles Bridge links 2 of Prague's most important districts, the Old Town and the Lesser Town. In the Old Town stands the medieval complex of the Old Town Hall, whose Gothic tower houses Prague's famous astronomical clock. Since 1410, this medieval clock has remained in operation, with a sophisticated mechanism that shows not only the time, but also astronomical data and the calendar. From here, a maze of cobblestone streets stretches out in every direction. Prague Castle is the largest ancient castle complex in the world, a collection of palaces, churches, and gardens that has been the seat of power for 1,000 years. Lisbon, Portugal. With a long history in Western Europe, the city was almost destroyed in 1755 by an earthquake, followed by a tsunami and a devastating fire. The center was rebuilt on a larger scale, with buildings designed to withstand future quakes. The Monument to the Discoveries honors the era when Lisbon was the capital of the Portuguese Empire, from where explorers like Vasco da Gama set sail. Like Rome, the city rests on 7 hills, making its streets steep, uneven, and full of slopes. Its trams, especially Line 28, have become an inseparable part of Lisbon's soul. On the banks of the Tagus rises the Belém Tower, built both as a defensive fortress and as a ceremonial departure point for explorers. St. Petersburg, Russia. This imperial capital was built from scratch by decree of Tsar Peter the Great, who in the early 18th century sought to modernize Russia and bring it closer to the West. Because of its northern latitude, the city experiences the so-called white nights, a summer phenomenon when the sun skims the horizon without fully setting. Founded on nearly 40 islands with countless canals and rivers, it has earned the nickname Venice of the North. The bridges across the Neva River are drawbridges, opening each night during navigation season to let large ships pass through. Among its many churches, the Church of the Savior on Spilled Blood stands out, with its neo-Russian architecture and vibrant, multicolored domes. San Sebastian, Spain. On one hand, it is an elegant Belle Epoque resort. On the other, it's a vibrant hub of Basque culture. The city is built around La Concha Bay, nearly perfectly circular and sheltered from the waves of the Cantabrian Sea. In the 19th century, it became the summer retreat of Spanish royalty, which spurred the construction of French-style buildings. Bern, Switzerland. While many European cities were ravaged by wars, Bern's Old Town has remained untouched for centuries. The Aare River winds around the city in a striking turquoise curve. Hundreds of public fountains are scattered throughout, decorated with colorful sculptures depicting historical figures and symbolic virtues. Medieval landmarks like the Clock Tower mark the old city gates, where mechanical figures spring to life at every hour. Interlaken, Switzerland. Its name, meaning between lakes, comes from its location between Lake Thun to the west and Lake Brienz to the east. Towering in the background rise the majestic Bernese Alps. The Aare River flows through the town, linking the two lakes. The composer Felix Mendelssohn once traveled through the region, and its beauty left a lasting impression on his work. Accounts from the time show how deeply it captivated artists. Granada, Spain. This city lies at the meeting point of the Darro and Genil rivers, guarded by the Sierra Nevada, the highest mountain range on the Iberian Peninsula. For 250 years, it remained the last stronghold resisting the Christian Reconquista. The Alhambra, with its blend of power and beauty, is perhaps the pinnacle of Islamic art in the world. Walking through its palaces feels like stepping into the medieval past, with gardens, courtyards, fountains, and exquisite Arab ornamentation. Directly across from the Alhambra is the Albaycin, a historic Moorish neighborhood of winding cobblestone alleys. After the reconquest of 1492, the Catholic monarchs built a new city center around the cathedral and the royal chapel, where their remains rest. Porto, Portugal. The city rises along the steep banks of the Douro River, creating a dramatic landscape of incredibly sloped streets. In the Ribeira district, clusters of colorful, irregular houses line the waterfront. Known as the Invincible City, Porto earned its nickname for resisting invasions, especially during the Napoleonic siege in the 19th century. The two-tiered Dom Louis I Bridge connects Porto with Vila Nova de Gaia, its sister city across the river. Bergen, Norway. Set on a peninsula shielded from the rough waters of the North Sea by nearby islands, Bergen enjoys a sheltered location. It sits in a valley encircled by a group of peaks known as the Seven Mountains. Charming wooden houses in shades of white, red, and ochre climb up the hillsides. Bryggen, the historic wharf, is lined with old wooden trading houses with steep roofs. From the city center, the Fløibanen funicular takes passengers to the summit of Mount Fløyen in just 6 minutes. Rome, Italy. Once the capital of the Roman Empire, it was the heart of the Western world for centuries. No other city holds such a dense collection of monuments, ruins, and masterpieces of art. It is also the only city in the world that contains an independent state within its borders: the Vatican. The Colosseum, the largest amphitheater of the Roman Empire, was built to host gladiatorial combat, exotic animal hunts, and even staged naval battles. The Pantheon of Agrippa is the best preserved building of ancient Rome, originally dedicated as a temple to all the gods. Paris, France. Known as the City of Light, it stands as a cultural, artistic, and culinary beacon of the Western world. It was the cradle of the Enlightenment, the stage of the French Revolution, and the birthplace of artistic movements such as Impressionism and Surrealism. As the city expanded, its old medieval neighborhoods were torn down and replaced with wide boulevards, elegant squares, and pale stone buildings. Built for the 1889 World's Fair, the iconic Eiffel Tower was initially dismissed by many intellectuals, who considered it an aesthetic disgrace. Seville, Spain. It is the living expression of Andalusian spirit, the heart of flamenco, and the stage for grand celebrations such as Holy Week and the April Fair. During Spain's Golden Age, gold, silver, and riches from the Americas entered the country through the Guadalquivir River and the port of Seville. The cathedral, built on the former site of a mosque, is the largest Gothic church in the world. Inside are treasures of Christianity, including the tomb of Christopher Columbus. Built in 1929, the Plaza de España is a monumental work, symbolizing the unity between Spain and its former colonies. Honolulu, United States. Surrounded by the immensity of the Pacific Ocean, it is considered one of the most remote metropolises on Earth. It blends native Hawaiian culture, Asian influences, and the American way of life, all in a lush tropical setting. To the east of the city lies Diamond Head, a volcanic cone formed about 300,000 years ago, now a state park with trails leading to its summit. The Waikiki district stretches along the urban shoreline, framed by elegant hotels. Buenos Aires, Argentina. often called the Paris of South America. Its charm lies in grand European-style architecture and wide, tree-lined avenues. After Argentina's independence, it became the nation's capital, welcoming millions of European immigrants who shaped its identity. The mix of Italian and Spanish settlers, combined with the local aristocracy's love of French culture, created a city that recalls Madrid, Paris, and Rome all at once. At the city's historic core is Plaza de Mayo, Argentina's political heart, flanked by the cathedral and the Casa Rosada. Chicago, United States. Located on a vast flat plain in northeastern Illinois, the city stretches along Lake Michigan, one of North America's Great Lakes. In the 19th century, it became a vital hub for the country's industry, and despite the devastation of the Great Fire of 1871, it rose again with renewed strength. Today, skyscrapers and modern buildings stand alongside a ribbon of parks and public beaches that line the shore. Its architectural legacy makes it unique. Chicago is where the techniques for building skyscrapers were born and perfected. The elevated train system winding between downtown buildings gives the city its unmistakable visual identity and kinetic energy. Kyoto, Japan. Once the imperial capital of Japan and the emperor's residence for more than 1,000 years, from the 8th to the 19th century, Kyoto embodies the nation's historic soul. It is a living museum on a grand scale, home to around 2,000 Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines. Exploring the city feels like stepping back into the elegance of feudal Japan. On its streets, geishas can still be seen. Kyoto remains the only place in Japan where this tradition continues to thrive. Istanbul, Turkey. The only city in the world that spans two continents. It bridges Europe and Asia. The Bosphorus Strait forms the dividing line between East and West, playing a central role in the city's identity. Istanbul also stands out for having served as the capital of both the Byzantine and Ottoman empires. The Suleimani Mosque is regarded as the masterpiece of Ottoman architecture. Built in the 6th century under the Byzantine Empire, Hagia Sophia was the largest cathedral in Christendom until its conversion into a mosque after the Ottoman conquest of 1453. Budapest, Hungary. Known as the Pearl of the Danube, the city shines with elegance, expressed in the grandeur of its Austro-Hungarian imperial architecture. The Hungarian Parliament building, a neo-Gothic masterpiece on the riverbank, is one of the largest parliaments in the world. Andrassy Avenue is a stately boulevard lined with neo-Renaissance palaces, leading to Heroes Square. The two sides of the city are linked by a series of bridges, the most famous being the Chain Bridge. Budapest is also celebrated for its thermal baths, nourished by dozens of hot springs flowing from a geological fault beneath the city. Amsterdam, Netherlands. Its historic center is laid out around concentric canals created during the Dutch Golden Age. The city has a worldwide reputation for open-mindedness, long serving as a haven for thinkers and persecuted minorities. Much of Amsterdam, like much of the Netherlands, lies below sea level, built on marshlands reclaimed from the water. The tall, narrow houses arose because taxes used to be charged based on the width of a building's canal frontage. Cycling is woven into daily life. There are more bicycles than people here, with nearly 1 million spread across the city. Vienna, Austria. No other city has been home to so many musical geniuses, Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, and Brahms among them. In the 19th century, it flourished as the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and became Europe's epicenter of classical music, the arts, and intellectual life. Today, it stands out for its exceptional quality of life, thanks to efficient public transport, cleanliness, safety, and the abundant green spaces. At the very heart of Vienna, the Hofburg Palace served as a residence of the Habsburg dynasty for 600 years. Schönbrunn Palace, known as the Versailles of Vienna, was the royal family's summer retreat. Kyiv, Ukraine. Regarded as the cradle of Eastern Slavic civilization, it was the center of Kievan Rus and the spiritual heart of Orthodox Christianity in the region. The city lies in the north-central part of the country, straddling the Dnieper River and spread across a series of wooded hills. It is one of Europe's greenest cities, with vast parks and botanical gardens scattered throughout. St. Sophia's Cathedral and St. Michael's Monastery create a breathtaking sight, especially at sunrise or sunset. The main street, Preshevik, was destroyed during World War II and later rebuilt in Stalinist style. Beside the Dnieper stands the towering Motherland Monument, holding a shield emblazoned with Ukraine's national emblem. Krakow, Poland. Once the royal capital, it was the cultural, scientific, and artistic center of the nation for 500 years. Although the capital moved to Warsaw in 1596, Krakow remained the place where Polish monarchs were crowned and buried. The market square is the city's focal point, one of the largest medieval squares in Europe. On the same square rises St. Mary's Basilica, with its 2 towers of unequal height. Perched on a hill beside the Vistula River, Wawel Castle and Cathedral stand out as former seats of royal power in Poland. João Pessoa, Brazil. It is the place in the Americas where the first rays of sunlight touch the land each morning. Within its limits, the city preserves an extensive network of parks and protected forest areas. Its historic center is remarkably well preserved, filled with Baroque churches, convents, and colonial buildings. Along its coastline stretch calm, warm beaches, sheltered by coral reefs and framed by palm trees. At low tide, the reefs reveal natural pools that are perfect for swimming. Veliko Tarnovo, Bulgaria. This medieval capital was built along the deep gorges of the Yantra River. Houses in the Bulgarian National Revival style seem to hang over the cliffs. It was once a cosmopolitan hub, bustling with merchants and foreign delegations, with Bulgarian, Armenian, Jewish, and Roman Catholic quarters. The walls of the Zarovets fortress stretch across one of the hills, crowned at the top by the Patriarchal Church. Edinburgh, United Kingdom. Known as the Athens of the North for its mix of hills, intellectual traditions, and classical architectural style. The Old Town, with its dark Gothic character, is dominated by Edinburgh Castle, an ancient fortress perched atop a volcanic rock. From a series of wide historic streets branch narrow alleys, which once led to inner courtyards and homes. St. Giles Cathedral is the city's principal church, distinguished by its crown-shaped dome. Matera, Italy. In the Middle Ages, Byzantine monks sought refuge here, carving churches and monasteries into the rock. The city has been continuously inhabited for 10,000 years, with its earliest settlers living in natural caves. There is no clear division between streets and buildings. Courtyards and passageways wind up and down the ravine's slope. Its ancient biblical appearance has made it a sought-after filming location for movies set in Jerusalem of old. Trinidad, Cuba. In the 16th century, it became one of the wealthiest cities in the Americas, thanks to abundant sugar production. When the sugar industry collapsed in the 19th century, the city was left isolated and frozen in time, which preserved its architecture. It sits on a coastal plain that meets the Caribbean Sea, backed by the Escambray Mountains. The cobblestone streets, laid with their original stones for carriages and pedestrians alike, are lined with rows of single-story houses. Ushuaia, Argentina. Its nickname, the End of the World City, is not just a saying. It's part of what makes it unique. Ushuaia is the southernmost city on Earth. Its beauty is raw, dramatic, melancholic, and awe-inspiring. Nearly all journeys to Antarctica set out from here. The city lies on a narrow strait that links the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, a place where large colonies of cormorants and sea lions can often be seen. Sydney, Australia. One of the great port cities of the world, Sydney dazzles with its harbor. Facing each other stand two of its most iconic landmarks, the Opera House with its sail-like white shells and the Harbour Bridge. The financial district showcases a skyline of modern skyscrapers. Not far away, the urban sprawl gives way to the coast, where golden sandy beaches stretch along the shore. Lucerne, Switzerland. Located in the heart of German-speaking Switzerland, Lucerne is the capital of the canton that bears its name. It enjoys a privileged setting at the mouth of Lake Lucerne, right where the Reuss River begins its journey north. The Needle Dam, an impressive feat of 19th century engineering, regulates the lake's water level. The Chapel Bridge, the city's unmistakable landmark, is the oldest covered wooden bridge in Europe, built in 1333 as part of its fortifications. Zurich, Switzerland. Home to major banks and multinational corporations, it stands as a global financial hub. The city sits at the northern tip of Lake Zurich, where the Limmat River begins, surrounded by wooden hills. Despite its role as a financial powerhouse, the Old Town retains a cozy charm, with many cobblestone streets reserved for pedestrians. In summer, the river's remarkably clear waters become the center of the city's recreational life. Thun, Switzerland. Located in the canton of Bern, in the German-speaking region of Switzerland, the city sits at one end of Lake Thun. Its name comes from the Celtic word dunum, meaning fortified hill. The Aare River runs through Thun with a powerful current and an astonishing turquoise hue. In summer, it's common to see surfers riding the waves, created by old sluice skates. Reykjavik, Iceland. Because of its proximity to the Arctic Circle, the capital experiences the northern lights, summers with nearly endless days, and winters with scarce daylight. Almost all of its heating and electricity are supplied by geothermal and hydroelectric energy. To offset the long, dark winters, the city center is filled with brightly painted houses. Modern architectural gems stand throughout the city, such as Hallgrímskirkja Church, whose tower was inspired by Iceland's lava formations. Barcelona, Spain. The undisputed capital of Catalan modernism and one of the most visited cities in Europe. Its urban beaches were artificially created, since the coastline was once lined with factories. La Rambla is a lively promenade that connects Plaça de Catalunya with the Columbus Monument by the harbor. The Sagrada Familia, Antoni Gaudi's masterpiece, is one of the most famous and longest-running architectural projects in the modern world. Also designed by Gaudi, Park Güell dazzles as a public space, filled with elements that seem to spring straight from imagination. Naples, Italy. Legend has it that the Margherita pizza was invented here in 1889 in honor of Queen Margherita of Savoy. Its landscape is dominated by the active volcano Mount Vesuvius and the volcanic area known as the Phlegrean Fields. Once the capital of various kingdoms in the Middle Ages, Naples was unified with Italy in 1861, yet it has preserved a unique identity shaped by its language and art. Among its neighborhoods, Posillipo stands out for its hillside location overlooking the sea, a place chosen by the Romans for their seaside villas. Stockholm, Sweden. The city combines brightly colored houses with clear water canals, winding among interconnected islands. Its historic center sits across 14 islands joined by 57 bridges. At the spot where the freshwater of Lake Mälaren meets the brackish waters of the Baltic Sea. Its growth began through trade in the Middle Ages, and by the 17th century, it had become the capital of the emerging Swedish Empire. Gamla stan, the Old Town, is one of Europe's best preserved medieval districts, with buildings painted in warm shades of yellow, orange, and red. Valletta, Malta. Designed and built in the 16th century, the city was conceived both as a masterpiece of urban planning and an impregnable fortress. Its purpose was to be a city made by knights for knights, a capital and a symbol of power. Although the streets are straight, the shape of the peninsula makes many of them steep, turning into long flights of steps. The gallerigi, traditional wooden balconies, are one of the hallmarks of local architecture. Helsinki, Finland. Originally Swedish in origin, it was later rebuilt by the Russian Tsars with the aim of resembling St. Petersburg. The sea is always close at hand, and green parks breathe life into every corner of the city. Untamed nature remains an accessible and essential part of daily life. Helsinki is both a peninsula and an archipelago, made up of hundreds of islands. Moscow, Russia. Since the 12th century, it grew from a minor settlement into the center of Russian power, leading to the liberation of the country from Mongol rule. After the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, it regained its status as the capital, becoming the heart of the Soviet Union. The Kremlin, Moscow's historic and political core, is a walled fortress that houses government institutions, churches, museums, and residences. St. Basil's Cathedral on Red Square is an iconic Orthodox church commissioned by Tsar Ivan the Terrible in the 16th century. The metro serves not only as public transportation, but also as an underground museum, famously called Palaces for the People. Its beauty is matched by an efficient and deep network of stations, originally designed to double as nuclear shelters. Tallinn, Estonia. Founded by the Danes in the 12th century, the city later endured centuries of Swedish and then Russian rule. It is one of the best preserved medieval cities in Europe, while also being a highly advanced digital society. Tall, spired towers, stone walls, and watchtowers have survived almost intact through the centuries. Its cobblestone streets, fortified walls, and 15th century merchant houses make visitors feel transported back in time. Timișoara, Romania. Set in a historically mysterious land, it lies at the heart of the legendary region of Transylvania. Around the year 1431, Vlad III of Wallachia, better known as Vlad the Impaler, the historical figure who inspired Dracula, was born here. The old town has been continuously inhabited since the Middle Ages, and many of its houses are as much as 500 years old. San Francisco, United States. In the 19th century, the gold rush transformed it from a small settlement into a bustling metropolis. The city spreads across dozens of steep hills. Fog is a constant natural phenomenon, formed when the ocean's cold, damp air collides with the land's heat. With its striking orange color, the majestic Golden Gate Bridge rises above the mist that envelopes the bay's entrance. On the steep streets, the historic cable car system still runs, unique in the world for operating entirely by hand. Madrid, Spain. Unlike other European capitals that grew near the sea or along major rivers, Madrid stands in the very center of the country. Its appearance is that of a royal capital, filled with monumental buildings. The Madrid of the Habsburgs, as the historic center is known, is a maze of charming streets and squares, such as Plaza Mayor. Later, the Madrid of the Bourbons brought grand neoclassical buildings, including the Royal Palace and the Puerta de Alcalá. Singapore. After a brief union with Malaysia, it became an independent republic in 1965, beginning an astonishing economic transformation. Despite its very high population density, the city maintains order through carefully designed urban planning. Glass skyscrapers merge with urban gardens, greenery, and structures built to coexist with nature. The vision was not to add green spaces to the city, but to build a city integrated into a natural environment. This vision comes to life in stunning projects like Gardens by the Bay, a futuristic nature park with vertical gardens. Strasbourg, France. Its location along the Rhine made it a contested territory, with a past shaped by shifting sovereignty between France and Germany. The historic center, known as the Grande Ile, is entirely circled by branches of the Ile River, a tributary of the Rhine, forming a true island. For 2 centuries, the Gothic Notre Dame Cathedral was the tallest building in the world. The Petite-France district, with its canals and cobblestone streets lined by timber-framed houses, was once home to fishermen and millers during the Middle Ages. London, United Kingdom. After surviving plagues and the Great Fire of 1666, the city rose to its height as the capital of the British Empire and the world's leading metropolis in the 19th century. As the heart of an empire that spanned a quarter of the globe, it attracted people from every corner of the earth. The city stretches along the River Thames, where Tower Bridge rises with its 2 towers linked by walkways. The Palace of Westminster, seat of the 2 houses of the UK Parliament, is a neo-Gothic architectural masterpiece. Westminster Abbey has hosted nearly every royal coronation since 1066 and holds the tombs of luminaries such as Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. Its streets combine broad avenues, bustling commercial areas, and a web of narrow lanes. Valencia, Spain. Spain's third-largest city sits on the Mediterranean coast, where a millennia-old history coexists with futuristic urban designs. In 1238, King James I of Aragon confronted the Muslim kingdom of Valencia, reclaiming the city for Christianity. The former bed of the Turia River has been transformed into an expansive garden that runs through the city. At its core, Valencia boasts a fascinating historic center dating back 2,000 years, filled with Gothic and Baroque stone buildings. Nice, France. Set on the French Riviera, it radiates the splendor of the Belle Epoque, the character of an old Italian quarter, and the brilliance of the Mediterranean. Its sheltered position, protected from the cold northern winds, creates a mild microclimate year-round. The city inspired artists like Matisse and Chagall, and it preserves a unique rhythm, expressed in its language, traditional cuisine, and singular history. By the late 19th century, it had become the preferred winter retreat of Europe's aristocracy. Ouro Preto, Brazil. Nestled in the mountains of Minas Gerais, it is one of the great treasures of colonial Brazil. During the 18th century gold rush, it became one of the wealthiest and most populous cities in the Americas. The city is filled with colonial churches surrounded by whitewashed houses, with streets winding up and down the slopes of the mountains. Corfu, Greece. From the sea, it looks like a postcard suspended between mountains and water, with houses inspired by Venetian architecture. It is both the capital and the main city of the island of Corfu, located off the western coast of Greece. After a brief French rule during the Napoleonic era, the island became a British protectorate in 1815 and was integrated into the Kingdom of Greece in 1864. Walking through the city feels like stepping into history, with an atmosphere that recalls Venice or Naples, quite different from the typical vibe of the Greek islands. Split, Croatia. The country's second largest city, it sits on a peninsula along the Dalmatian coast, washed by the Adriatic Sea. It is the only city in the world whose historic center is literally a Roman imperial palace. Its story began when Emperor Diocletian chose this spot to build his monumental retirement palace. Over time, the site fused its original Roman architecture with buildings constructed across 1,700 years of history. New York, United States. From Manhattan's skyscrapers to Brooklyn's neighborhoods, it is a living organism where ambition and human diversity meet. The city is built around a vast natural harbor. It became the first capital of the United States in 1789 and served as the main gateway for millions of immigrants arriving in America. For many, the most beautiful part of New York is Central Park, an urban oasis with lakes, woodlands, meadows, and winding paths. This great green expanse balances the city, a refuge amid the buildings that brings together cultural, social, and recreational life. Bratislava, Slovakia. The city blends the grandeur of its past as a Hungarian coronation site with the energy of a modern capital. It lies on both banks of the Danube River, right at the foot of the first peaks of the Little Carpathians. Bratislava is the only capital in the world that borders two countries, Austria and Hungary, reflecting a rich history of languages, empires, and symbols. From a hilltop overlooking the Danube, Bratislava Castle watches over the city, once the residence of Hungarian monarchs. Ljubljana, Slovenia. With origins dating back to the Roman city of Emona, It thrived for centuries as a medieval hub under Habsburg rule. Legend has it that the Greek hero Jason and the Argonauts slew a dragon in the swamps, where the city would later rise. The Ljubljana River is the soul of the city. Its banks lined with cafes and willows, alongside a mix of Baroque and Art Nouveau buildings. A devastating earthquake in 1895 led to a wave of Art Nouveau reconstruction, but it was architect Jože Plečnik who gave Ljubljana its modern identity. Today, Ljubljana Castle is one of the city's main attractions. Visitors can ride a funicular up the hill and explore its museums and restaurants. Cadiz, Spain. Considered the oldest city in Western Europe, it bears a striking resemblance to Havana. Founded by the Phoenicians as a trading post, it later prospered under Roman rule, and by the 16th century became a base for expeditions to the Americas. The old quarter was built on what was once an island, nearly surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean, leaving it highly exposed to sea winds. A seafront promenade circles much of the city, offering ever-changing views of the ocean. In 1812, during the war against Napoleon, Spain's first constitution was proclaimed here, marking a milestone in European liberalism. Lugano, Switzerland. Located in southern Switzerland, it lies within the canton of Ticino, the country's only region where Italian is the sole official language. The city sits on a bay along Lake Lugano, a glacial lake stretching between Switzerland and Italy, flanked by mountains. This landscape creates a mild, humid microclimate, ideal for subtropical vegetation. Tbilisi, Georgia. Perched at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, the city spreads along the winding Mitkvari River, embraced by mountains. Its name comes from Tbili, meaning warm in Georgian, a reference to the natural hot springs found there. According to legend, Tbilisi was founded in the 5th century by King Vakhtang Jorjasali after he discovered its thermal waters. Its irregular terrain has shaped a tiered city, and being in the southern Caucasus, it experiences cold winters and hot summers. Bologna, Italy. The city preserves a vast medieval old town and is known as La Rossa, the red, for the color of its rooftops and buildings. In the Middle Ages, Bologna had more than 100 towers, built by noble families competing in height and power. Arcades line most of the streets in the center, ranging from simple wooden arches to elegant Renaissance-style galleries. Founded in 1088, the University of Bologna is recognized as the oldest university still in operation in the world. Warsaw, Poland. It became the country's capital at the end of the 16th century and has since grown into a cultural and political landmark. Nicknamed the Phoenix City, it was almost completely destroyed during World War II and was rebuilt with historical accuracy. The Old Town resembles a medieval and Renaissance city, with a square surrounded by colorful merchant houses. The Royal Castle, reconstructed thanks to public donations, was for centuries the official residence of Polish monarchs and the seat of Parliament. Towering above the skyline, the Palace of Culture and Science dominates the cityscape with its monumental socialist architecture. Verona, Italy. World famous as the setting of Shakespeare's tragic tale of Romeo and Juliet. Situated at the foot of the Alps, it has long been a crossroads linking Northern Europe and Italy. The Duomo of Verona is not a single structure, but rather an architectural complex made up of several connected buildings. The Verona Arena, built before the Roman Colosseum, is so well preserved that it still hosts opera festivals today. Sedona, United States. Its striking red rock formations and reputation as a center of spiritual energy have made it a symbol of New Age culture. For much of the 20th century, it remained a small farming town and a favorite filming location for Western movies. Low-rise adobe-style buildings in earthy tones blend harmoniously with the surrounding landscape. Santiago, Chile. The city is constantly framed by the towering presence of the Andes. On clear days, especially after rain or in winter, a wall of snow-capped peaks reveals itself above the skyline. The historic center, clustered around the Plaza de Armas, features neoclassical landmarks such as the Metropolitan Cathedral and La Moneda Palace. San Cristobal de las Casas, Mexico. Founded in 1528 by Spanish conquistadors, it served as the capital of Chiapas for most of the colonial era. Set in a highland region, the city enjoys pleasant temperatures year-round, and mornings often begin shrouded in mist. In the heart of town, several pedestrian streets bustle with life, filled with cafes, restaurants, and shops. The Church of Guadalupe rises at the top of a stairway, with 79 steps leading up from one of the city's main streets. Cartagena de Indias, Colombia. Established in the 16th century, this coastal city has a hot and humid climate. Its historic center was once safeguarded by walls, built to fend off pirates and potential invaders. Right next to it lies the Getsemani neighborhood, brimming with colorful colonial houses and streets decorated with hanging umbrellas. Brussels, Belgium. Serving both as the capital of Belgium and the capital of the European Union, it is a melting pot of cultures, languages, and nationalities. Art Nouveau flourished here, with buildings that combine flowing curves with innovative uses of iron, glass, and wood. The Grand Place stands at the city's heart, surrounded by opulent guild houses adorned with gilded Baroque details. The medieval town hall still functions as the seat of city power. Chania, Greece. Regarded by many as the most beautiful city in all of Greece. Located on the northwest coast of Crete, it grew around a natural harbor shielded by a strip of land and a breakwater wall. The Venetians fortified the city, giving it its unmistakable Renaissance character. In 1669, it fell to the Ottoman Empire, which added mosques and Turkish baths. Built in the 16th century by the Venetians and later renovated in the 19th century by the Egyptians, the Konya Lighthouse still guides sailors today. Milan, Italy. Once the capital of the Western Roman Empire, it was here in 313 that Emperor Constantine the Great issued the Edict of Milan, legalizing Christianity. The cathedral, instantly recognizable by its forest of spires, is a jewel of Italian Gothic, whose construction began in 1386 and stretched across nearly 6 centuries. Celebrated as a temple of fashion and design, the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II blends architectural elegance with luxury boutiques and historic cafes. Opened in 1931, Milano Centrale remains the city's main railway station, distinguished by its immense steel and glass vault sheltering 24 tracks. Cordoba, Spain. The Guadalquivir River flows through the city, crossed by the ancient Roman bridge. In the 10th century, under Umayyad rule, Cordoba reached an extraordinary cultural, economic, and demographic peak. After the Christian conquest in 1236, it became part of the Crown of Castile, which built churches and palaces atop earlier structures. Its greatest symbol of beauty is the Mosque Cathedral, a masterpiece where Islamic and Christian art coexist harmoniously under one roof. Inside stretches a vast forest of marble columns and two-toned archways, crowned by a Renaissance cathedral. Arequipa, Peru. Founded in 1540 by Spanish conquistadors, the city quickly grew as a key center of commerce and imperial administration. Located in southern Peru at the edge of the Andes, it is surrounded by 3 towering volcanoes. Its historic center is filled with grand colonial mansions, churches, and convents built from white volcanic stone. Bordeaux, France. The city lies on the banks of the Garonne River, right at a crescent-shaped bend that earned it the name Port of the Moon. Its golden age came in the 18th century, when it became France's leading port, enriched by the trade of wine and sugar. The Cathedral of St. Andrew, the most important church in Bordeaux, stands out for its Gothic architecture. Facing Place de la Bourse is the world's largest reflecting pool, a vast stone slab that mirrors the surrounding buildings. The city center is a maze of pedestrian streets, lined with squares, churches, and bell towers. Tromsø, Norway. Encircled by fjords, alpine peaks, and the Norwegian Sea, it is a hub for exploration and natural wonders. In winter, snow blankets the city and its mountains, creating the perfect setting for dog sledding, reindeer safaris, and chasing the northern lights. By the early 20th century, it had become the departure point for major polar expeditions, including those of explorer Roald Amundsen. Thanks to its unique location, Tromsø is considered one of the best places on Earth to witness the Aurora Borealis. Copenhagen, Denmark. Built across several islands, it is a metropolis of colorful harbors and royal palaces. Its identity is tied to water, not only the sea, but also a chain of artificial lakes bordering the center and numerous canals weaving through the city. Nyhavn, the historic harbor, is lined with rows of 17th and 18th century townhouses. Today, Copenhagen is renowned for its high quality of life and sustainability, with abundant green spaces and a strong sense of social well-being. Marseille, France. For centuries, it has been a crossroads of cultures, where Maghrebi soul meets the serene spirit of Provence. It rests on the Gulf of Lion in the Mediterranean, shielded by mountains that surround it like an amphitheater. Incorporated into the Kingdom of France in 1481, it has always retained an independent spirit, and by the 18th century became the gateway to the French colonial empire. In the Old Port, where the Greeks founded Marseille 2,600 years ago, in a natural inlet, a modern marina now stands. Innsbruck, Austria. In the heart of the Alps, the city blends the elegance of its imperial heritage with the thrill of adventure sports. From the center, snow-capped peaks are visible for much of the year. In the 20th century, its fame grew as a premier winter sports hub, hosting the Winter Olympics in 1964 and 1976. Kazan, Russia. Capital of the Republic of Tatarstan. It is a place where East and West coexist in balance. In 1552, Ivan the Terrible captured it after a brutal siege, a decisive event in Russia's eastward expansion. The Kazan Kremlin, perched above the Volga River, combines Tatar and Russian architecture. It is one of the rare places in the world where a mosque and an Orthodox church share the same fortified grounds. Riga, Latvia. Home to the world's largest concentration of Art Nouveau architecture, with more than 800 buildings in this style. Over the centuries, different powers ruled the city: Germans, Swedes, Poles, Russians, and Soviets. It lies on the Baltic coast, straddling both banks of the Daugava River, near its mouth in the Gulf of Riga. The historic district preserves treasures such as the House of the Blackheads and Gothic churches that recall its legacy as a merchant city. Toledo, Spain. Known as the Imperial City, it rises on a hill encircled by the Tagus River, in the center of the Iberian Peninsula. The natural moat of the river gave it exceptional defenses, making it coveted by different civilizations. For centuries, it was a place where Christians, Jews, and Muslims lived together in relative harmony, leaving their mark on its architecture, art, and traditions. This cultural blend is evident in its buildings: Moorish horseshoe arches in Christian churches, and synagogues that resemble mosques. The Cathedral of St. Mary of Toledo is the pinnacle of Gothic style in Spain, built atop the foundations of the old mosque. Atop another hill stands the Alcazar of Toledo, a Roman fortress reshaped many times through the centuries. Ghent, Belgium. Less crowded than its neighbor Bruges, it is a hidden gem of the Flanders region. At the confluence of the Leie and Scheldt rivers, The city benefited from a canal network that boosted trade and connected it to key centers. While many cities altered their canals, Ghent has preserved its layout almost unchanged since the 14th century. Historic buildings line the waterways, best admired during boat tours. Trieste, Italy. This port city combines the spirit of the Mediterranean with the refinement of Central Europe. Declared a free port in 1719, it became the principal harbor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a status it held for half a century. It feels like a seaside Vienna, with Central European elegance expressed in its docks and grand squares. The city does not feel entirely Italian. Instead, it is a fusion of Slavic, Germanic, and Latin cultures, deeply tied to both the sea and literature. Mostar, Bosnia and Herzegovina. A city where East and West embrace, and, at times, collide. It is instantly recognized by its stone bridge, the Starry Most, arching over the emerald waters of the Neretva River. An invisible frontier still runs through the city, separating Croats and Bosniaks, a lingering reminder of a recent past that remains present. Thessaloniki, Greece. Greece's second largest city and the capital of Macedonia, its past reflects the influence of Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman civilizations. King Cassander named it after his wife, Thessalonike, the half-sister of Alexander the Great. Built in the shape of an amphitheater, the city climbs from the sea up toward the mountains. The White Tower, erected by the Ottomans in the 15th century, once served as a prison and has become Thessaloniki's enduring symbol. Zagreb, Croatia. The city exudes an atmosphere reminiscent of great Central European capitals like Vienna and Budapest. Few places blend Gothic cathedrals, surrealist museums, and alternative festivals so naturally. Upper Town, perched on a hill, is the historic core from which the city grew. Lower Town represents the modern era, developed from the 19th century with broad, tree-lined avenues and eclectic architecture. Taxco de Alarcón, Mexico. Founded by the Spanish around 1529, it became one of the first mining centers in the Americas. It is one of the rare mining towns that has preserved its colonial essence, almost completely intact. Many of its steep streets resemble rivers of stone, flowing between whitewashed houses, topped with red tiled roofs. Évora, Portugal. It's the capital of the sunny Alentejo region. The city flourished after the medieval period as the residence of Portuguese kings and an intellectual hub with the founding of its university. It remained under Islamic rule for 400 years, until its reconquest in the 12th century by King Gerald the Fearless, a Portuguese adventurer. The cathedral, the largest medieval church in the nation, blends Romanesque and Gothic styles, and allows visitors to walk along its rooftops. Munich, Germany. The thriving capital of Bavaria, where tradition meets the innovation of the automotive industry and high technology. After suffering immense destruction during World War II, the city was rebuilt and reinvented itself as a prosperous hub. It is world famous for Oktoberfest, the largest beer festival on the planet, first held in 1810 to celebrate the marriage of Crown Prince Ludwig I of Bavaria. San Diego, United States. Bathed in sunshine on California's southern coast, it is known for its laid-back vibe, mild climate, and Hispanic heritage. After Mexico's independence in 1821, San Diego remained a Mexican town until it was annexed by the United States in 1850, following the war between the two nations. It sits on the Pacific coast, right next to the Mexican border, and serves as the main base of the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet. Balboa Park, a vast cultural complex in the heart of the city, brings together museums, theaters, gardens, and the world-renowned San Diego Zoo. Gdansk, Poland. Positioned on the Baltic Sea, this port city stands as a symbol of centuries of resilience and the pursuit of freedom. During the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, it played a central role in Baltic trade as a key member of the Hanseatic League. The Old Town stretches along the Motlava River, a tributary of the Vistula that was vital to its commercial growth. Here, the spark of World War II was lit, and decades later, the Solidarity movement arose, helping bring about the end of the Cold War. Carcassonne, France. From its Roman beginnings, it evolved into a fortress in the 5th century, and later took part in the crusade against the Cathars during the Middle Ages. Its defenses consist of an elaborate double-wall system. The inner wall, of Roman origin, together with the 13th century outer wall, made Carcassonne nearly unconquerable. Inside lies a preserved medieval citadel, where visitors can walk along its towers and ramparts. Salzburg, Austria. With the arrival of winter, the city takes on a magical charm, its Baroque rooftops and fortress blanketed in snow. It sits in central Austria, near the German border, sheltered by the Eastern Alps. The name Salzburg, meaning salt castle, comes from the wealth of nearby salt mines. In the 18th century, it became the birthplace of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and in the 19th century, after the Napoleonic Wars, it officially joined Austria. Nassau, Bahamas. Both a bustling cruise terminal and a financial hub, it still retains the authentic historic charm of the golden age of piracy. After pirates were expelled in the 18th century, Nassau was rebuilt as an orderly British colonial capital. Its beaches feature fine white sand washed by clear waters and fringed by resorts. Colonial mansions and houses, often painted in pastel shades, reflect British architectural influence. Cusco, Peru. The historic capital of Peru. It was once the sacred capital of the Inca Empire, set high in the Andes. In 1533, Francisco Pizarro seized the city, and the following year it was re-established as a Spanish settlement. Many colonial buildings rest on foundations of Inca walls, built from massive polygonal stones, fitted together with extraordinary precision. Flores, Guatemala. It carries the charm of a colonial town while also exuding the warmth of a Caribbean island surrounded by jungle. The city was built directly atop the remains of the Maya settlement that preceded it. A cluster of colonial buildings painted in bright colors gives Flores its character. At the top of the island lies the central square, with its wide church and small park, from which streets descend in all directions. Bruges, Belgium. Founded by the Vikings, it grew into a wealthy commercial city thanks to its thriving textile industry and access to the sea. Its brick Gothic architecture and nearly untouched urban layout immerse visitors in a medieval atmosphere. Canals lined with weeping willows and elegant mansions are crossed by dozens of stone bridges. Most of its streets remain narrow and cobblestoned, preserving their medieval paths. Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. A crossroads of east and west, it is home to Ottoman mosques, Orthodox churches, Catholic cathedrals, and synagogues side by side. Founded in the 15th century under Ottoman rule, it was annexed by the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1878, which modernized it with Central European architecture. In the 20th century, the city endured nearly 4 years of siege during the Bosnian War, yet schools, theater performances, and a film festival persisted. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated here, an event that set off the chain events leading to World War I. Heidelberg, Germany. Located in the southwest of the country, it sits where the Neckar River flows out of the forested hills of the Odenwald. The river, framed by wooded slopes, became a major source of inspiration for writers of German Romanticism. Founded in 1386, Heidelberg University is the oldest in Germany, turning the city into an intellectual center of humanism and the Reformation. Coimbra, Portugal. Set along the Mondego River, this former capital retains a strong academic identity, shaped by its historic university. The city is divided into 2 levels: the upper town, home to the university and noble buildings, and the lower town by the river, where commerce thrives. After the age of voyages to the Americas, it ceased to be the political center, but consolidated its role as Portugal's intellectual and cultural capital. Genoa, Italy. Capital of the Liguria region, it earned the nickname La Superba for its glorious past. It rose as a maritime power in the Middle Ages, becoming the Republic of Genoa and rivaling Venice and Pisa for dominance of Mediterranean trade. Wedged between the sea to the south and the rugged Apennine Mountains to the north, Genoa developed within dramatic geography. Near the historic center is believed to be the birthplace of navigator Christopher Columbus, who discovered America for the Crown of Castile. Antwerp, Belgium. The largest and most populous city in the Flanders region. In the 16th century, it became Europe's greatest financial and commercial hub, until the Spanish siege of 1585 triggered a mass exodus of merchants and artisans. Today, it is the world's diamond capital, with 80% of rough diamond trade passing through its specialized districts. Among its architectural landmarks is the Grand Train Station, often compared to a cathedral. The Cathedral of Our Lady impresses with its slender north tower and the 170 years it took to complete. Antigua, Guatemala. Encircled by three majestic volcanoes, Agua, Fuego, and Acatenango, it once ranked among the most prosperous cities of the continent. That prosperity ended when a massive earthquake in 1773 reduced much of the city to rubble. Instead of rebuilding, many ruins were left standing, giving Antigua a nostalgic, romantic atmosphere. Willemstad, Curaçao. This Caribbean city is almost a perfect replica of a 17th century Dutch town set in the tropics. It lies on the southern coast of Curaçao, a mostly flat and arid island in the southern Caribbean. Its historic center is striking. Dutch-style 2- and 3-story buildings with the gabled roofs typical of Amsterdam, yet surrounded by Caribbean waters. When ships need to pass, the Queen Emma Bridge swings open, with flags signaling how long it will remain raised. Granada, Nicaragua. Founded in 1524 by the Spanish conquistador Francisco Hernández de Córdoba, it is one of the oldest cities in the Americas. During colonial times, its access to the Caribbean Sea made it a prosperous trading port, attracting frequent pirate attacks. The city's crown jewel is the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Assumption, with its yellow facade and gracefully designed domes. San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. After nearly becoming a ghost town, it was revitalized in the 20th century by artists and intellectuals. Its historic center is a maze of cobblestone streets, lined with colonial mansions. The Church of St. Michael, the Archangel, stands as the city's symbol, inspired by European Gothic cathedrals, but finished in a style uniquely its own. Hamburg, Germany. Shaped by its vast port, countless canals and bridges, and a long history of maritime trade. Despite the devastation of the 1842 fire and the bombings of World War II, today it is Germany's second largest city. With the Elbe River running through it and close to the North Sea, Hamburg holds more bridges than Venice and Amsterdam combined. Bamberg, Germany. Known as the Rome of Franconia, the city is built on 7 hills, each topped with a church. Along the banks of the Regnitz River lies an area called Little Venice, where medieval fishermen's houses lean over the water. Its old town has remained almost unchanged for 7 centuries, making it a rare example of a perfectly preserved medieval city in Europe. Bari, Italy. A city of striking contrasts, a lively medieval core alongside a 19th century district that is sober and elegant. Located on the Adriatic coast, its old town sits on a narrow peninsula, jutting into the sea, forming a sheltered harbor. At its heart is the Basilica of St. Nicholas, which houses the relics of the 4th century saint whose generosity inspired the legend of Santa Claus. Bath, United Kingdom. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the city declined but later revived as a medieval spa town, reaching its height in the 19th century. Jane Austen lived here from 1801 to 1806, a period that inspired parts of her writing. The Polteni Bridge, spanning the River Avon and modeled after Florence's Ponte Vecchio, is one of Bath's iconic landmarks. Andorra la Vella, Andorra. Capital of the Principality of Andorra, a microstate nestled high in the Pyrenees, between Spain and France. It is a compact and elongated city, squeezed into a valley where modern commercial buildings coexist with traditional stone and slate mountain architecture. Set in a narrow valley in the eastern Pyrenees at an altitude of 1,023 meters, it is the highest capital in Europe. Vancouver, Canada. Framed by mountains and embraced by the sea on 3 sides, the city offers one of the world's most stunning urban backdrops. After Los Angeles and New York, it is the largest film and television production hub in North America. Far from being gray or closed off, Vancouver is composed of quiet neighborhoods, tree-lined streets, and abundant green spaces. In its downtown, sleek skyscrapers shimmer in shades of green and blue glass. Stanley Park, a lush rainforest almost entirely surrounded by water, is the city's natural crown jewel. Manaus, Brazil. The largest city deep in the Amazon, it has no direct road connection to other major urban centers. It lies on the north bank of the Rio Negro, just above its confluence with the Solimões River. Here, nature puts on a unique spectacle. The dark waters of the Rio Negro and the lighter Solimões flow side by side without mixing. At the end of the 19th century, the rubber boom brought Manaus worldwide fame, turning it into a wealthy city, nicknamed the Paris of the Tropics. During that era, the opulent Amazon Theater was built, an opera house decorated with materials imported from across Europe. The floating port of Manaus remains vital to Amazonian life, built on pontoons that rise and fall in the river. Siena, Italy. Perched on 3 hills in Tuscany, it is easily recognized by its shell-shaped square. As a powerful independent republic, Siena rivaled Florence in wealth and military power during the Middle Ages, dominating commerce and finance. The Piazza del Campo stands out among Europe's medieval squares for its architectural harmony and central role in civic life. The Cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta is a jewel of Italian Gothic, its facade in white, green, and red marble, adorned with statues and mosaics. Inside, striped black and white marble columns reflect Siena's symbolic colors. Passau, Germany. On the border of Germany and Austria, this city of 3 rivers is celebrated as a Baroque gem. It sits in an unusual spot, on a slender peninsula where the Danube flows to the north and the Inn to the south. From the peninsula's tip, visitors can see the rivers merge into one current, with distinct colors running side by side before blending. Erfurt, Germany. Capital of Thuringia, known as the Green Heart of Germany, it preserves a remarkably intact medieval ensemble. It is the city where Martin Luther entered monastic life. The Gera River winds through town, splitting into branches and canals, that give Erfurt the feeling of a little Venice. Sofia, Bulgaria. One of Europe's oldest cities, it blends Roman ruins, Orthodox churches, Ottoman mosques, and Soviet-era architecture. Inhabited for 7 millennia, it became Bulgaria's national capital in 1879, beginning its modern development. Its most iconic monument is the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, built to honor Russian soldiers who died liberating Bulgaria from Ottoman rule. Lviv, Ukraine. Often called the Little Paris of the East, or the Florence of Ukraine, it is renowned for its Renaissance and Baroque architecture. In 1772, after the partition of Poland, Lviv became the capital of the province of Galicia, under the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a period that gave it its Viennese elegance. Every building, church, and street reveals a new layer of history, shaped by Ukrainian, Polish, Armenian, Jewish, and Austro-Hungarian influences. The city is also hailed as Ukraine's coffee capital, boasting at least 1,500 cafes, an astonishing number for its size. La Paz, Bolivia. The world's highest capital city, it sits on the Andean Plateau at around 3,600 meters, or 11,811 feet above sea level. Its uneven terrain shapes urban life, creating microclimates and striking vistas. La Paz hosts the world's largest and highest urban cable car system, linking the city center with its many neighborhoods. One standout district is Chaluma, where dozens of houses together form a massive mural, painted in vibrant designs inspired by Andean culture. Zanzibar, Tanzania. Considered the cultural capital of the Zanzibar archipelago, its historic heart is the famous Stone Town. It lies in the Indian Ocean on Unguja, an island of low terrain, gentle hills, mangroves, and white sand beaches. Buildings are constructed from coral stone taken from the sea, giving them their distinctive creamy tone. Dresden, Germany. Known as the Florence of the Elbe, for its exquisite art collections and Baroque architecture. Like many German cities, it was devastated during World War II, but reconstruction restored much of its former glory. Between the 18th and 19th centuries, Dresden thrived as a musical center. Richard Wagner worked here, and Johann Sebastian Bach premiered several pieces in the city. Nuremberg, Germany. During the 15th and 16th centuries, it was the center of the German Renaissance and the home of artists such as Albrecht Dürer. After being 90% destroyed by Allied bombings in 1945, it was chosen as the site of the Nuremberg trials. The Imperial Castle remains a historic emblem of the city, once the official residence of the emperors of the Holy Roman Empire. Guanajuato, Mexico. In the 16th century, it quickly became a wealthy mining city, largely financed by the Spanish Empire. Colorful houses are stacked one upon another along the canyon slopes. Fueled by silver wealth, Baroque and neoclassical buildings were erected across the city. York, United Kingdom. A city of immense historical and architectural richness, where traces of Roman and Viking presence can still be found. In the Middle Ages, it prospered through the wool trade, leading to the construction of its stunning Gothic cathedral. The city center is a maze of narrow cobblestone streets, locally known as Ginelles. It is said that the Shambles, with its crooked buildings and magical atmosphere, inspired Diagon Alley in the Harry Potter books. Basel, Switzerland. Set along the Rhine, it blends medieval heritage, cutting-edge architecture, and internationally renowned museums. It is Switzerland's only river port, with access to the North Sea via the Netherlands. Located at the meeting point of Switzerland, France, and Germany, the city embodies a cosmopolitan spirit. Da Nang, Vietnam. Set between gleaming beaches and lush landscapes, with the Son Tra Peninsula and the Marble Mountains as its backdrop. It is a dynamic, fast-growing city, the most rapidly developing in the country. On weekends, the Dragon Bridge comes alive, breathing fire and water in a spectacle that symbolizes the city's energy and ambition. Nearby in the Truong Song Mountains rise the Ba Na Hills, home to the Golden Bridge, a walkway held aloft by two colossal stone hands. Palma de Mallorca, Spain. The city spreads across a wide bay, shielded by the Serra da Tramuntana. Seen from the sea, its cathedral appears to rise directly from the water, thanks to its position above the old city walls and its closeness to the port. Built on the site of a former mosque, the cathedral underwent interior renovations centuries later, under Antoni Gaudi. Vilnius, Lithuania. For centuries it was called the Jerusalem of the North, known for its large Jewish community and atmosphere of coexistence among Catholics, Orthodox Protestants, and Jews. The city boasts thousands of Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque, and neoclassical buildings, some of the best preserved in Eastern Europe. Dozens of active churches give Vilnius a skyline filled with spires and bell towers. Rostock, Germany. In medieval times, its location along the Vornau River and near the Baltic made it a strategic hub for Northern European trade. Few German cities keep their maritime heritage as alive as Rostock, woven into daily life. Founded in 1419, its university is among the oldest in Germany and one of the earliest institutions of the Protestant world. Oaxaca, Mexico. Encircled by mountain valleys, it is the cultural and culinary heart of southern Mexico. For millennia, it was home to Zapotec and Mixtec civilizations, with nearby Monte Alban serving as their great ceremonial center. Today, it remains a hub of indigenous culture, reflected in its languages, bustling markets, and vibrant festivals. Zooming in, Germany. A quintessential university town, it stands out for its youthful population compared with other German cities. Largely spared from World War II bombings, it still preserves timber-framed houses, cobblestone streets, and Renaissance squares. Ottawa, Canada. Peaceful in spirit and refined in appearance, the city is defined by its stately architecture and abundance of green spaces. In 1857, Queen Victoria unexpectedly chose it as the permanent capital of the province of Canada, resolving the rivalry between Toronto and Montreal. Parliament Hill, with its clock tower, known as the Peace Tower, is a prominent example of 19th century Neo-Gothic in the Americas. The Rideau Canal, a 19th century engineering masterpiece, winds through the city and is the oldest continuously operating waterway on the continent. Travel reminds us that beauty has no single form. It takes on 1,000 faces in every city. There is always more to discover, to feel, and to remember. Thank you for joining us. See you again.